Anywhere in the world. Everybody's writing about it, all over Europe, all over the world they're talking about it.
Donald Trump's race for the Republican presidential nomination has once more become an international talking point. Not only has he backtracked on his pledge to support the party's eventual nominee, but his campaign manager has been charged with battery.
You just look at that tape throughout the whole process, and you see how unfair it is. It's a very unfair. He's a good person. He's a good person with a wonderful family. And for him to be charged over something like that. And remember, she grabbed me before he even broke anything, and it almost looks like he's just trying to create a little room, because to be honest with you, the news conference had finished. It was over.
Democratic hopeful Hillary Clinton took time out from pulling pints to give her verdict.
We don't want to go too far. You guys want some?
I'm not going to comment on a pending legal or criminal case, but I think that ultimately the responsibility is Mr. Trump's.
Corey Lewandowski is accused of grabbing and bruising reporter Michelle Fields.
First of all, I don't know this guy. I don't know exactly what happened. My understanding is that the report is that he grabbed somebody, and that's frankly totally and completely inappropriate. It could have been one of my daughters, for that matter.
Lewandowski voluntarily went to the police. He'll reportedly plead not guilty in court in May.
How's that for some breaking news this morning?
The Turkish president arrives in the United States for a nuclear security summit with other world leaders. But the visit has already got off on the wrong foot. Recep Tayyip Erdogan will not have a formal meeting with his US counterpart, President Barack Obama. He will, though, have a formal meeting with US Vice President Joe Biden. The White House has dismissed suggestions that this is a snub. Meanwhile, the US has ordered the families of all military and diplomatic personnel to leave southern Turkey due to security concerns. It's also warned its citizens not to travel to the region.
Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. The decision to do this, the timing of it, was completely considered independently of the nuclear security summit and the visit here to Washington by Turkish officials. Absolutely no connection to that whatsoever. This was done as it should be, based on the security threat and our concern about the safety for American citizens.
The decision applies to almost 700 relatives living here at Incirlik Air Base. Near the Syrian border, it's a key strategic point in the campaign against ISIL. Security in Ankara and Istanbul is said to be satisfactory.
Stepping outside the classroom to retake control of their schools. First lessons of the day were cancelled at some 250 establishments in Hungary as teachers, pupils, their parents and grandparents gathered to protest at centralised control of state education, which they consider oppressive and heavy-handed. We thought someone should represent the students, at least a few of us. We heard students at other schools are taking part too. I'm here for my grandchildren. I have 6 of them. The 7th is about to be born, and I'd like them to have a good education system, preparing them for real life. Since the centre-right government took control of schools from local authorities 3 years ago, teachers' and students' workloads have increased. A new curriculum uses textbooks critics say contain factual errors and promote very conservative views. With this, the latest in a series of protests, the government is discussing making changes. The Secretary of State asks demonstrators to join other teaching organisations and unions already round the table, but his invitation is unlikely to be accepted as protesters consider this forum a farce and not representative of their views. For the protesters, this is yet another example of what they see as Prime Minister Viktor Orban's authoritarian style of leadership. Our correspondent in Budapest says organisers say they'll give 2 weeks for the government to budge. Failing that, more action will follow.
Újabb akciókat szerveznek majd. Hajagos Andrea, Euronews, Budapest.
barely recognisable. These new images taken a day after the terror attacks at Brussels airport. Bosses now say it will take months to get the busy transport hub back to full speed. It was hoped that some services could resume today, but the airports will remain closed. Staff have been back at work testing out temporary check-in arrangements set up in marquees to bypass the badly damaged area of the terminal building.
Wel, het gaat om heel praktische zaken natuurlijk.
Practical matters, what goes where, which facilities we can use. They were the questions during the first few days, she says.
Daarna gaat het natuurlijk.
Now we think about the people. Are they ready to work? How will employees react to this situation? Because for many, it will be the first time they're returning.
Op deze nieuwe situatie.
For affected passengers, regional airports in Antwerp and Liège are only offering limited capacity as an alternative. Brussels Airlines is running up €5 million in daily costs. Lufthansa has cancelled all flights to Brussels until Sunday. The number of people killed at the airport and here at Malbec metro station has been revised down to 32, excluding the suicide bombers. That's after the double counting of 3 people with dual nationality. Meanwhile, police are still hunting a third man seen on airport CCTV on the day of the bombings, after a suspect was freed.
Venezuela's opposition-controlled National Assembly has passed an amnesty law liberating those it considers political prisoners. It means 76 high-profile opposition figures who are behind bars could be freed. Some have already been convicted, while others face trial. It would also mean an amnesty for hundreds of ordinary Venezuelans who, it's claimed, were persecuted and exiled as a result of their opposition to the government of Hugo Chavez. President Nicolas Maduro has vowed to veto the bill. They're passing a law to protect murderers, he says, criminals, drug traffickers and terrorists. Rest assured that this law will not pass. If the bill does become law, hardline opposition leader Leopoldo López is among those likely to benefit. He was convicted of provoking anti-government protests in 2014. 43 people died in the violence. López was found guilty of arson, violence and damage to public property. He was sentenced to 13 years and 9 months in prison.
Could this be the death knell for Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff's term in office? The country's largest political party, the Democratic Party, or BMDB, has announced that it's leaving her governing coalition. The BMDB holds 7 ministerial posts and the vice presidency, and has 69 members in the 513-member Chamber of Deputies, the lower house of parliament. Rousseff is fighting moves to impeach her over allegations that she manipulated Brazil's accounts and has links to various corruption scandals. But former President Lula da Silva has leapt to her defense. Allow this woman to have the tranquility to govern the country. Allow her to have time to think in this country and let her be judged when her term is over. Rousseff was da Silva's hand-picked successor. The departure of the BMDP sharply increases the odds of proceedings to impeach her going forward. Rousseff insists there is no legal basis for impeachment.
A new era of democratic government has finally begun in Myanmar. Houtin Chaw has been sworn in as president of the country after decades of military rule. He took the oath of office in a joint session of Myanmar's newly elected parliament on Wednesday. His 2 vice presidents also took the oath. The ceremony ushers the long-time opposition party of democracy campaigner Aung San Suu Kyi into government after 54 years of direct or indirect military rule. Suu Kyi's party, the National League for Democracy, won a landslide victory in last November's election. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate is ineligible to be president herself, but says she will run the government from behind the scenes. Myanmar's former President Thein Sein took part in the historic handover. Hours before leaving office, he lifted a state of emergency in the restive western state of Rakhine, imposed after clashes between Buddhists and minority Rohingya Muslims in 2012.
All signs pointed to the European Union's sanctions on Russia being a positive move for its small domestic farmers. But 2 years on, farmers in Russia's southern Krasnodar region are angry about what they say are illegal land grabs from big agricultural corporations. The creation of a working group has put a stop to a planned tractor run to the Kremlin in Moscow, but locals are still unhappy. They all lie, no one wants to do anything. Why do they grab our fields, asks this woman. We are the owners, and they want to take our land. Another woman added, I'm not going to give it away, it's my parents' land. Why should I? I'm not going to move out of here. The region is one of the richest in the country in terms of agriculture. Produce farmed here is distributed nationwide. Farmers say they hope the creation of the working group will signal the start of a resolution to their problems.